So now we'll start with our panel. Trained a double at Cheltenham last year, one of the shrewdest trainers in Ireland. Runners from his yard are treated with extreme caution by the bookmakers. He has several leading fancies at this year's festival. Tony Martin. Northern Ireland's leading national hunt trainer, including training the main bumper winner at Aintree last year. He has sent many a successful raiding party across the Irish Sea, and festival success awaits him. Stuart Crawford. Representing the sponsors, Toals Bookmakers, the festival diary of this expert pundit has shown a profit in each of the past 5 years. Put it together for Archie Devlin. And straight from the winner's enclosure at Naas with CW, the Armagh-based jockey trainer adds further insight with his knowledge of the game. Ronan McNally. Northern Ireland's top flat trainer, a highly respected and well-established trainer. This man literally knows his horses inside out, as he is also a qualified vet. Put your hands together for Andrew Oliver. And a racing enthusiast, football legend, and raconteur, Benny Tierney. Racing enthusiast with sporting background is steeped in road bowling, who again will leave no stone unturned in his quest for winners. Your compere for tonight, Mr. Jarlath Devlin. And unfortunately, after a late phone call this morning, Brian Cooper told me that due to a very heavy work commitment, he is unable to attend this evening. So it's upwards and onwards. So put your hand together for the panel till we get this night on the road. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to the Armagh City Hotel, to our Cheltenham preview evening. We hope to provide you with plenty of insight. We hope to actually tease information, tease tips from these well-established pundits, and hopefully we'll steer you on to a few winners as we did last year. Now, as usual, we're going to start with the Supreme Novices Hurdle, and we're going to look at a few. Right, just to give you a few statistics before we begin. Since Breavinka won this race at 7-2 10 years ago, hot favourites have a poor record. For instance, My Tent or Yours was second at 15-8, Q-Card fourth at 7-4, and Dungwib, if you remember, was third at 4-5. 4 favourites out of the last 20 runnings have won the race, and Irish horses have won 5 out of the last 10 and 11 out of the last 20 runnings. And 12 of the last 19 winners, they've never ran at Cheltenham before. Right, I'd maybe like to ask the panel now, just for their selection for this race. We'll start with Benny.
I was going to say Wicklow Brave. But I was told once with a horse I backed who fell for 3 races, and I was talking to the owner, and I said, what's wrong? He says, he's a great jumper. He just can't fucking land. And so I'm going to go with Votor, and a great start for the Irish.
Andrew.
Yeah, just because of previous association, I'll say Justice Hill, but I do agree with what Tony's assessment is on Western Boy. I think he's definitely an each way bet, and that form going close to Vautour, it'll put him in the picture.
Archie, is it the liquidator for you?
Absolutely.
Short and sweet. Ronan?
I'll go Western Boy each way, although Archie was saying that Wicklow Brave doesn't jump well in a bumper. Western Boy was only 2 lengths off Wicklow Brave, so he's carried on his good form into hurdling as well, so each way at the price.
And Stuart?
I think I'd stick with the Mullins horse and go for Vautour, although there's a horse there maybe at a bigger price of Mick Shannon's if he runs in it, Sergeant Reckless. I think he's way overpriced and warmed up with a wee all-weather bumper win a couple of weeks ago. He was third favourite for the champion bumper last year, and I think he maybe even beat the Anti-Post Supreme favourite in a novice when winning his first hurdle this year. You know, so he might be one to get a bit of value from, and maybe that's where the each way money could go.
Yeah, I go for Western by each way. Sorry, Western by each way.
Right, I hope you've made notes of all of that, and we can see on the mid-March how we've all done in the first race. We're going to move on now to the Arkle Challenge Trophy, which Archie, can we ask the panel then for their final selection? Benny, what will win the race?
Well, as a goalkeeper, I dodged a lot of bullets, but that means they were hitting the back of the net. So I'm gonna go for dodging bullets, because I dodged a lot of my day.
Right, Andrew?
I'll stick with dodging bullets, knowing the horse. As I say, just one factor is to realise Cheltenham has been previously a race too far for him. So I hope he's a stronger horse this year, and I hope it comes good.
And Archie?
Yeah, dodging bullets.
3 out of 3 so far. What about you, Ronan?
Rock on, Ruby.
Ronan's rocking on, and Stuart?
Definitely Champagne Fever. Why I wouldn't go for Rock on Ruby, I think the jumping will not be a concern for him, but just the fact maybe chasing wasn't in the agenda back in October, and now he's lined up for the Arkle, maybe just puts me off a little bit. And I just think that will the gal that likes the Champagne Fever should say it, whether that might catch his wind.
And Tony?
I go for Grandjouet.
Right, I hope you've all that noted. It looks like dodging bullets is the selection. And we'll move on to the third race of the day, which is actually the feature race, which is the Stan James Champion Hurdle. And we'll look at it. Right, folks, can I tie you down now to one? Nail your colours to the mask. Benny Tierney, who's going to win the Champion Hurdle?
My Connor.
Andy.
I'll give our Connor the vote as well.
And Archie?
The new one.
Ronan?
My 10 each way.
And Stuart?
I'm going to go for our Connor.
And finally, Tony?
Jetski.
There you have it, folks. Make notes. We're going to move on to day 2 to the Neptune. And the Neptune's run over 2 miles, 5 furlong, and was won, of course, last year by the new one, as you just heard. And we'll look. Right, folks, can I tie you down to your nomination of the winner of this race? Right, Benny?
Red Sherlock.
Andrew?
Red Sherlock.
And Archie?
Yeah, 3.
Ronan?
I'll go each way, Gil Shadow. Stuart's a good judge.
And Stuart, of course.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely have to stick with my own horse there, but I think that Red Sherlock's a big danger.
And Tony?
Ratfinden.
Thank you very much indeed. And we'll move on now to the second race of day 2, which is the Royal Sun Alliance. And it's a race won last year by Lord Windermere, and it's over 3 miles. Right, folks, can I tie you down to your selection, Benny?
Carlingford Lock for me.
And Andrew?
Win Ballycasey, best bet Carlingford Lock.
Archie?
Don Cossack.
Ronan?
Morning Assembly each way.
And Stuart?
Ballycasey to win and Anacotty for a place.
And finally, Tony?
Ballycasey.
Right, there you have it, folks. Moving on to the feature race on day 2, the Queen Mullet Champion Chase. Right, folks, can I have your selection? Benny Tierney.
Size in Europe each way.
Andrew.
I haven't my mind made up. I'll go for Kid Cassidy.
And Archie.
Yeah, size in Europe.
Ronan.
Sarah Grugy win and Bailey Green each way.
Stuart Crawford.
Just given the holes that we're fit to pick and probably plenty of them, I'm gonna go for Captain Conan. I just think he's maybe been one that hasn't been talked about too much, and I think he'll run a big race.
And finally, Tony.
Avika Legionnaire.
You think they've straightened him out?
Yeah, I think he can, but he hope well. Be a hard job, but he's a very classy horse.
He certainly is. The final race to the first session, we'll take a 15-minute break after this particular race, the Champion Bumper. So we'll look at if Archie could review now your selection. Benny Tierney.
I'm going to go for Golden Taylor.
Andrew.
I have an open mind. I'll pick Shane's Hill.
And Archie.
Golden Tiller.
Ronan.
Golden Tiller.
Stuart.
Yeah, I think the experience is a big thing in this race, and the fact, like Tony's horse there, that's coming back in his second season. You know, he'd be the one for me, but I definitely would be. I wouldn't be ignoring my mare, and she's a mare as well.
Which is a help. And Tony.
Yeah, I can't go against my own fella. I'll have to go Golden Tiller.
It looks like Golden Tiller is the main selection. All right, we're moving on to day 3 of the festival, and we're beginning with the JLT Novices Chase for Jack Adam. Maybe we could have your selections for this race. We'll begin with Benny.
I'll stick with my original. I'll probably go Wonderful Charm, but I would be going each way on Jack Adam as well, possibly.
Andrew, would there be anything at all you'd fancy?
I'll go for Felix Younger.
And Archie.
I'd stick with Takan de Sil.
Ronan.
Jack Adam.
And Stuart.
Yeah, Taekwondo Sil.
And Tony.
Oscar Whiskey.
There you have it, folks. Make up your mind. On day 3, the second race we're covering is the Ryanair Chase. Absolutely right. Could I have your selections? Benny Tierney.
Beneficent. Benny.
Andrew.
Beneficent.
Archie.
Again.
Ronan.
Efficient.
Stuart.
Beneficent.
And Tony.
I'll have to go for our own lad.
You sure do. Now, the final race we're covering on day 3 is the World Hurdle. Folks, can I have your selections? Benny Tierney, have you had a chance to study any of the runners in this race? Or will you put your pen in the paper?
I think if Ruby Walsh rides Any Power, I would go for Any Power, no doubt.
Andrew.
Any Power.
More of that.
Any Power.
Any Power. Although I did hear a little rumour that Mount Bunbulbin might be supplemented for this race.
And Tony. Oh, sorry.
So that could be interesting. Mount
Can't hear.
Bunbulbin.
1, 2.
Gordon
I can't hear you.
Mount Bunbulbin.
Mount Bunbulbin. Yes, he's been entered. Yes, it was in the news today. He's in. Yes, he is. He's been supplemented.
Yeah, like that has to be interesting in itself. Gordon's done that.
Seems strange. He's been chasing for the last 2 years. His jumping sketchy enough, but it seems strange again. It's like an afterthought they're putting him in this. He hasn't been supplemented yet, but it's going to happen by the sound of things. Tony Martin, what's your selection?
Any Power with a run, and if she doesn't run, or not, sorry, more of that. John Joe Niels and Tony McCoy.
Thank you very much. We're now on to the final day of the festival, and the first race we're covering is the Triumph Hurdle. Right, folks, can I have your selections? Benny Tierney.
I'm going with La Roche.
Right, Andrew.
Of the top 3, I would say La Roche, but watch out for Tiger Roll.
Guitar Pete.
Ronan.
Guitar Pete.
La Roche, and if Guitar Pete will be there to pick up the pieces.
And Tony.
Le Roche.
There you have it. La Roche seems to be the main standout in this race. Quite a competitive renewal. Now we'll move on to our final race of the evening, and of course it's the Cheltenham Gold Cup, won last year by Bobsworth, 11-4 favourite. Now we'll take a look at some of the preview races.
Turn and race across towards the second last. Ruby Ball and First Lieutenant on the outside. Sir Deschamps is third. Then Lyrene Legend, Bobsworth on the inside. Union East and Lord Windermere. They're racing now towards the home turn in the Lexus, and it is Ruby Walsh and Ruby Ball. First Lieutenant David Casey on the outside. They're chased up by Bobsworth and Barry Geraghty. Then Sir Deschamps. They're racing now towards the final fence. Ruby Ball and First Lieutenant from Bobsworth towards the stand side, and then Sir Deschamps. They're coming down to the final fence in the Lexus, and as they rise, First Lieutenant in the centre, Ruby Ball over on the far side, being followed by Bobsworth. They're racing inside the last 200 yards, and First Lieutenant, here comes Bobsworth, the Gold Cup winner, to cut them down. They're racing up towards the finish, and Bobsworth, The champion has done it. Bobsworth and Berry get it with the jump now. And for last instalment is over in front of Lyrene Legend. They're being followed by Lord Windermere and tracking them on the outside, First Lieutenant. But last instalment is kicked now for Brian O'Connell and taken a good 4 lengths out of this field as they run off the turn. He's being chased by First Lieutenant. Lyrene Legend and Texas Jack is fourth. They're on the run now towards the final fence, and it is last instalment 3 lengths clear. First Lieutenant, Texas Jack trying to make ground the outside, coming down to the final fence. Last instalment over and clear now of First Lieutenant and Texas Jack and Lyrene Legend, and then Tidal Bay, but up towards the finish. It's last instalment out clear for Brian O'Connell and is going to win the Hennessy Gold Cup for Gigginstown and Philip Fenton. Last instalment.
They have half a mile to go in the King George. Q-Card still has the lead. His shadow throughout on the outside has been Silviniano Conti, and these two now are pressing on, and they've now gone 6 lengths clear of Alfaroff, who begins to paddle around the outside. Long Run tries to stay on. Mount Benbolben. Dinast has not fired, and neither has Menora. And here's the third from home in the King George. Q-Card jumps it supremely well. A bad mistake by the beaten Long Run at the time. Good recovery. Down now towards a second from home, and it is Q-Card who's simply trying to gallop them into the ground. 2 out in the King George. Q-Card, another immaculate leap. Joe Tizard steals a peak. He has a lead of 2.5 lengths. Silviniano Conti rallying again in the hands of Noel Feely as they come down towards the final fence, and Silviniano Conti has taken the lead over the final fence. Q-Card now with 3 lengths to find and racing up towards the line. It is going to be a record 8th win in the King George for trainer Paul Nichols as Silviniano Conti wins the King George.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, the Gold Cup was the standout race of last year's festival. It was looking very open then, but with the loss of Sir de Champ and Q-Card, the race now appears to have lost a little bit of its competitive sparkle, but we'll have a chance at analysing it here and see what we can do. Favourites have a 50% win rate in the last 12 years. The last 12 winners came from the first 3 in the betting. Only 1 horse older than 9 has won it since 1992, and only 1 horse over the age of 10 has won since 1969, and it was What a Myth. We'll begin with Bobsworth. It's just hard to know where to start, but maybe we should start with him, the current champion. He's won 5 from 5 at the track, including the RSA back in 2012 from First Lieutenant. Stuart Crawford. Bobsworth, he's only had 2 runs this year. He was hammered in the Betfair chase by Q-Card, and then he beat First Lieutenant in the Lexus at Leopardstown over Christmas. Is he about to emulate the likes of Best Mate, War of Attrition, Denman, Synchronised, who all used the Lexus as a stepping stone to Gold Cup glory, and indeed retain his title?
Yes, I think he can. Back in the Lexus there, he probably looked beat 5 out, but in the end, he's one gone away, beating the best in Ireland, probably bar last instalment. He's had his problems. So, I think that Bobsworth, if you look down through his record, he's had an awful lot more wins than he has losses, and I think he's been well-minded with this campaign for the Gold Cup, and I think you definitely, studying this race, you definitely have to start with him anyway.
Thanks, Stuart. Ronan McNally. Bobsworth won the Gold Cup last year. He won the RSA in 2012, beating First Lieutenant, and the Albert Bartlett in 2011. He loves the place. He has to set the standard.
Aye, of course he does. His first run of the season there, they really fancied him, but Henderson's horses were under a cloud, and he obviously came back and he transpired he was sick, so I would just write that off again. He came back over then for the Lexus. Probably wasn't 100% because he was only coming back from a break, and he showed his class there, coming left-handed instead. So Cheltenham's going to suit him better again this year with extra distance there and finishing up the hill. The 3 horses there that'll be in the first 3 will be Bobsworth, Silviniano Conti and Last Instalment. Last Instalment will be a bigger danger in that evidence there at Leopardstown there and through a farm line through First Lieutenant. So I love the way he jumped, he galloped, he done everything right there, and that was only his 2nd run from a long layoff. So I would imagine there he'll give Bobsworth all he wants. The only negative for Bobsworth is a friend of mine, Shivo, looks after him, and he's tipped him up to me, and anything he tips up to me gets stuffed, so that's a word of caution.
Thanks, Ronan. Archie, looking at it maybe from a negative perspective, Bobsworth's chances, they weren't exactly boosted by the result of the Hennessy at Leopardstown when 13-year-old Tidal Bay finished in front of First Lieutenant, and Bobsworth, he only finished 1.5 lengths in front of First Lieutenant in the Lexus.
Yeah, although they ran actually right to the pound to the Lexus of last year. Do you remember whenever the four of them finished, a blanket would have covered the four of them. Tidal Bay beat First Lieutenant, and if anybody remember Mouse Morris turned around and actually thought he'd won the race, and Tidal Bay came from the clouds and got up on the inside and beat them all. So the form is there. To me, it's not great form. Can I ask for a show of hands? Anybody in the room? How many people fancy Bobsworth? Right, fancy Bobsworth. We'll get round to Toals in the morning, okay? We'll go 11-4, Bobsworth tomorrow. All day tomorrow, 11-4 Bobsworth. Non-runner, no bet.
Should we give 3-1? Go 3.
No. 3-1. Listen, he's a 7-4 shot there. He's a 7-4 shot. 11-4.
3-1, Archie.
Right. Come on. 11-4. That's the best price in the world, boys. And the whole betting village. Nobody will match that. Nobody will match it. Nobody will match that, boys. 11-4.
We'll get the new pink shirt.
3-1. 11-4. Oh yeah, all right. It's good. Right. Okay. 11-4. Right. 11-4 tomorrow, but all day tomorrow. All day tomorrow. I think that there's night racing at Campton tomorrow as well, so they'll probably open at 8:30.
Well, folks, remember last year when Toals let Hurricane fly, you all steamed on, and you know the result. So bear that in mind. Bobsworth 11-4. Get on tomorrow if you fancy him. Tony Martin, Paul Nicholls gets very irritated when people suggest Silviniaco Conti's chances are reduced on account of the venue, and he hasn't won at Cheltenham and that he prefers soft ground. Is he looking through rose-tinted glasses? He might get the soft ground, but he did fall last year.
Yeah, he's a very good horse. If he gets the soft ground, I don't think he'll win. I think there's a horse, Last Instalment. He's as good a horse that we've seen in a long, long time, and unfortunately for injury, he could have been a proper champion. And he will, well, after Leopardstown last day, Chickenstown said they won't risk him on anything other than soft ground. If he runs and the ground comes up in his favour, I can't see anything beating Last Instalment. And Silviniaco Conti would be my next choice. If Last Instalment doesn't run, I think Silviniaco is the one. I think he'll beat Bobsworth and whatever else is left in the race. But for me, if the ground is soft and Last Instalment runs, I think he's the one. I think he's a very, very good horse. And if he doesn't show up, I would go for Paul Nicholls' horse, Silviniaco Conti.
Thanks, Tony. Brendan Tierney. Silviniaco Conti, he was going as well as anything last year when he fell. People keep saying he doesn't like Cheltenham. He's not won there. Do you think his time has now arrived to deliver, or is it just not to be?
I don't buy into that he doesn't like Cheltenham. You know, he was well behind Q-Card in the last one, and he was 3 out, and he looked an all-out winner. But you got to remember that he also hampered Bobsworth when he came down last year, and Bobsworth went on to win. We saw Bobsworth in the reel there, battling it out again. This is going to obviously come down to a battling. You know, when it comes down to a battle, you look back on a horse who's been through battles, and not a horse who's fallen 3 out. And for that reason, and this is the only race I've ever been successful in my life, I had synchronised 2 years ago at Bobsworth last year, and I'm going for Bobsworth again. Although Henderson has said that the main problem could be Last Instalment if he runs, but I'm still going to go for Bobsworth.
Thanks, Benny. Andrew Oliver. Paul Nicholls has stated in recent media interviews that Silviniaco Conti, he's now the right age, he's 8-year-old. He's strengthened up, he's normally a good jumper, and he has a leading chance. However, he counters that by saying, I think he stays. Surely he should know the answer to that question by now.
Well, I'll not retread old ground in the last answer regarding stamina. Just look at the last video footage. He didn't seem to be stopping at Kempton Boxing Day. He Yeah, again, he was travelling well last year when he went down. He's a very good horse. I think the standard is set by Bobsworth. He's done it all. He's won round Cheltenham. He sets, the form. He's setting the form, so he has to be beaten. Tony is right in the say probably one of the most visually impressive displays was last instalment, Philip Fenton's horse. Now there's enough question marks over him regarding whether he turns up, whether he's allowed to turn up, and obviously ground dependent, but he's a fresh horse. He's a fresh horse that has come back with one run and then a tremendous display at Leopardstown. So if he turns up with ground in his favour, then on the back of that sheer form, he would have an outstanding chance. But they have to get past Bobsworth.
Thank you, Andrew. Stuart Crawford. With Sir Deschamps's defection, it seemed First Lieutenant was going to be the Gigginstown standard bearer in the Gold Cup. But out of the ashes, as we've heard, last instalment, with his majestic front-running display in the Hennessy, he appeared in the scene. And only a second run back from a 2-year hiatus, his jumping was incredible. What is your take on that Hennessy performance, and should we expect him to improve again in March? Enough to win, maybe?
He had to be impressed by his performance in Leopardstown. Jumped, as you say, jumping was fit perfect, and basically has galloped and jumped the rest of the horse into the ground that day. I think he's had a long layoff, but I think it's long enough from then until Cheltenham that he'd sufficiently over that run and hopefully come on from it. Just like what Tony said, but for all his problems, what might he have been? And he's maybe going to have a chance to show what he can do. And I definitely think if the ground comes up to suit him, that he can get to run. He probably is the one to give Bobsworth the run for his money. I just feel that Nichols's horse, he's probably beaten on stayers in Q Card and Alpha Off, or horses certainly that their stands are a bit suspect. So for me, Bobsworth last instalment, it's a head-to-head. If conditions will turn up a little bit in the soft side.
Thanks, Stuart. Archie Devlin, I want to put this scenario to you. The Gold Cup's often won by a horse with speed as well as stamina. Now consider Best Mate, Kicking King, War of Attrition. They all finished second in the Supreme. Even Denman, he was second in the Neptune. Bobsworth, he won a 3-mile Albert Bartlett, and he has less speed than those horses. His Gold Cup win was the slowest since 1989. Now, if Dynast happens to turn up here in the Gold Cup, could he be the answer? He ran a cracker in last year's Juicing over 2.5 mile, and he stayed well enough as a hurdler.
You're barking up the right tree, Jarlath, but I think you've got the wrong horse. I think Captain Chris, who won the Arkle, Kicking King, runner-up in the Arkle, I think Captain Chris, as an outsider, okay, like a lot of horses, he's better going right-handed, but he has won an Arkle. He beat good horses in the Arkle as well, so I think for an outsider, I think he rather than Dynast. I'm almost sure Dynast will go for the Ryanair. There's an interesting stat about two interesting stats about Silviano Conti. One is that he's never won a race with any more than 8 runners in it, and 2, he's never won in February, March or April. All his wins have been at the start of the year or in January. And if you remember, after he fell in the Gold Cup, when supposedly going so well last year, he ran like a set of bagpipes at the entry. So, take 3-1 for a horse that has never won. I don't know. I think you need your head looked if you take 3-1 him, honest to God. Captain Chris, each way.
All right, there you've had it. Archie, the last 12 winners, they've come from the first 3 in the betting. It's looking like more of the same this year. Can Toals confirm that that's the case, or are they seeing any nibble at anything higher in the betting, or is it all the first 3?
No, there will be bits and pieces of money. I think last instalment will come in for a lot of money. Although it's just a shame about the steroid thing hanging over him. He's an absolutely magnificent jumper, and if he jumps the way he did at Leopardstown, nothing will get anywhere near him. He'll run them all into the ground.
Folks, thank you very much indeed. Folks, that's it for the evening. We're going to finish now by asking the panel for the selection for the Gold Cup, starting with Benny.
Bobsworth for me.
And Andrew.
If your students of form, back form, and that's Bobsworth.
Captain Chris each way.
Bobsworth, straight, and cover your bet with last instalment each way.
Bobsworth.
Last instalment, and if he doesn't show up, I'll go for Silviane Conti.
There you are, folks. You have it from the experts. I want to thank you all for your attention, and I'm going to hand you over now to Sammy Gillespie just to say a few words before we conclude.
Well, what I'm going to say is that Toals, our main sponsor, has very kindly offered the entire panel here a £100 free bet for the charity, for our charity. So I would ask the panel now if they would just, starting with Tony Martin and work your way up, what horse they would like to have their £100 free bet on in the Cheltenham meeting. Tony,
sorry, what's that again?
Would you pick a horse? You have a £100 free bet for this charity. So you pick a horse that you think will win at the Cheltenham meeting. You're napped for the meeting, and that's the one you'll have a £100 free bet for the charity.
The Albert Bartlett hurdle. What price is Briars Hill?
Sorry?
Briars Hill in the Albert Bartlett hurdle.
Briars Hill.
What price have we got on?
Briars Hill, what price? 9 to 2.
Yeah, that'll do me.
Thanks, Tony. Stuart?
Champagne Fever in the Arkle, what price is he?
What price Champagne Fever, Dan? 7 to 2 we have about Champagne.
Aye.
Thanks, Stuart. Ronan?
And GLT, if he's 11 to 1, if he doesn't run, Rock on Ruby.
Right, you've got that, Dan, have you? Yeah, and if he doesn't run, Rock on Ruby. Archie?
Corrine Wood in the 4-miler on the Tuesday.
What price is it?
12s.
12 to 1. Dead on. Andrew?
I'll back my old favourite, Dodging Bullets, in the Arkle.
And what price is he, Dan? Sorry? 6 to 1, Dodging Bullets. And Benny?
I'll go for Red Rum. No,
Red Rum. We'll lay you 10 to 1 on him.
Yeah. Bobsworth at 3 to 1 if I'm going to get it
right,
from Toals.
You've got it. We'll give you 3 to 1.
There we go.
3 to 1 for you, Benny.
And that's for everybody as well if you go to Toals tomorrow. 3 to 1.
3 to
All
1.
right, can't give it to me and not give it to everybody else.
So Benny has got 3 to 1 about that. That's a great job. And Jarlath Devlin.
I think last instalment's going to get an easy lead here without Q Card in the race. So my charity bet's on him at 13 to 2.
I hope it's not his last instalment, but well, folks.